Alright everyone, so in this video I'm going to show you how to scrape med spa owner emails using URLLib and Beautiful Soup. Now, why would we even want to get into web scraping? Why is this something that a data scientist would need to know how to do? Well, first of all, the foundation of data science, of course, is data, right? If you don't have information to work off of, you're nowhere. So, not all data is going to be easily accessible through a CSV file or a database that you're going to connect to. Sometimes you're just going to have to go out and get the data yourself. And this is where web scraping comes in. It allows you to automate the collection of data from websites. And in this video, we're going to demonstrate how to do this by actually scraping a website called sculpture.com, which is sort of a weight loss technology that medical spas use. We're going to scrape this particular site for medical spa owner email addresses, okay? And let's get started on that. Okay, so here is Brooke Shields. She is apparently a new spokesperson for Sculpture, and they've recently apparently rebranded to something called Warm Sculpting, which I suppose is in order to contrast their their brand from another popular weight loss technology called Cool Sculpting. But anyway, let's just take a look at how this website works without getting into any scraping initially, just so you can see how you might go about this process on a manual basis to start with. So let's say I'm looking for med spa owner emails, right? Because I want to, let's say I'm doing a marketing campaign and I want to maybe reach out to these people on a cold email basis. Not spamming, but maybe just to provide a personal introduction, say, hey, you know, I offer lead generation or whatever it is, whatever marketing services you might be offering, if that's the industry you're in. So I'm going to go up here to the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to say find a provider. And let's say I'm going to look for a provider in the middle of Alaska, and I'm going to search 300 miles around this central point. Okay, so apparently there are providers in Alaska, and I'm just going to look at the first one here, Revive Aesthetics. I'm going to say more details. And it gives me some information on the spa, all right? It says who the providers are. So it lists them out. It actually shows us the homepage for this spa, shows the address. But if you'll notice, even though it gives all this information, it does not overtly come out and give you the personal email addresses for these doctors or these technicians, and that's for good reason, right? I mean, these people don't want to get spammed. So let's take a look at the code on this website and see if there might be something underlying the outward appearance of the rendering here. We're just going to say view page source. All right, now I'm going to take a look and see if there's a mail here. Okay, so you'll notice down here, there's this thing here, provider's email, reviviac@gmail.com. Okay, so this might be more of a generic email address that just goes to someone who's and responsible for monitoring this Gmail inbox, but as you can see, this is an email address for this spa that wasn't overtly obvious just from looking at the rendering of the HTML on the web page itself, okay? But this gives us a clue as to how we get started into parsing through this HTML code to actually get to the bottom of where these emails might lie. Now this turns out to be exactly where they are, and in the particular industry of sculpture and with this website that is basically a directory of these sculpture providers that's hosted by the parent company itself, there are medical spa doctors' email addresses in here that are available. All right. So again, we don't want to spam these people. We want to provide personalized emails if we're going to reach out to them. But this is just a method for actually going and basically looping through all of these places and getting this information. So how do we do this? So here I have a Jupyter notebook file, and I'm just going to walk you through the process at kind of a high level, and then I'm just going to point out some code to you so you can see how you can actually do this. All right. So the first thing we're going to want to do is open up a CSV file that we're going to use to just write stuff to. We'll write a header row, and then we can loop through a list of zip codes that represent the geographical center of each state in the United States. Okay, so rather than going through however many 9 or 10,000 zip codes that there are in the U.S., because that takes a while, what we can do is we can actually say, all right, well, what's the geographical center of the state, and pinpoint that, and then do a search on a 500-mile radius from that point, and that'll give us a wide enough radius to actually ensnare all of the providers into our search, and then we can just parse through those to get these email addresses. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use URLLib to fetch a search results page that lists out the individual providers in the format of something that the HTML refers to as a provider card for every sculpture provider within this radius. And we're going to use Beautiful Soup, which is a library for Python, to parse the HTML code. We're going to open the web page associated with the provider card and use Beautiful Soup to generate parsed HTML code from which we can extract the website address for the provider, as well as any email addresses that are associated with that provider. Once we've done looping through all of our zip codes, then we can just close out the CSV file, and we will have a completed list in that CSV file of all of these providers and their email addresses. So super cool. All right, so let's walk through the code here. To get started, of course, we're going to have to import some libraries, URLLib request, and from BS4 import Beautiful Soup as soup. So we can just reference that variable to do our Beautiful Soup parsing of the HTML. Up here we have our code to open the CSV file to write, and we're going to write the header of name of the provider, the URL, and the email. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I have a list here of zip codes for each of the 50 states. But just for demo purposes, what I've done is I've commented out that line, and I just have one zip code, which is this Alaskan zip code. And then we'll just be able to demonstrate this without looping through each of the 50 states. Okay. So we're going to say for zip int in zip list, meaning zip integer, right? And then we're just going to pad that to have leading zeros. We're going to say, okay, we're going to process this zip. All right. We have a URL address here. Now this is key to this whole thing. So this is a string literal here, okay? And this is the sculpture website. And at the tail end of this, we have a search query, which includes, the country, which is US, treatment 33, which is the sculpture treatment. And way off on the end here, we've got the zip code, okay? And this is where we're going to plug in this Alaskan zip code for demo purposes of 99777. And the proximity, see this over here on the end, is 500 miles, okay? And then we're going to open the page here with URLLib request. All right, and it's important that we provide a user agent here while we're doing the scraping. And I've put this out here. Okay, so we're just going to read in that page HTML. We're going to put it in this page HTML variable. And from this, we can get the page soup from Beautiful Soup for the search results page. Okay? Now, if we get what's called a notification basically what I did was I said, okay, well, what happens if we get a search results page that doesn't include any providers? Well, it's going to throw out this notification here, and it's got a class of notification content. So if we find that, that's just going to indicate to us that there were no providers found for this zip code. And then we can just continue on through our loop to the next zip code until we're done. Otherwise, we actually found something. So let's get all the provider cards for each sculpture provider for this geographical area. And again, we're going to use page soup, and we're going to say find all, and this class here, this div class of provider card, okay? And for each provider card that comes out in the search results, we're going to get the name of it, all right? And what we're doing is we're kind of amassing a list of provider names. So we want to say if the provider name is not already in our list, because if you have multiple search results page that we're looping through and you already have the provider in there, we don't want to waste time looping through the same provider and getting emails, because we've already tackled that, right? So we say if the provider name is not in this list, we're going to append it to our list of provider names and print it out in our console so we can see that this is actually doing something while we're scraping. We're going to get this provider's page off the sculpture site, get the HTML, and turn it into parsed soup. And that's what this code does here. All right, and what we're left with is provider page soup. So this is a parsable list of tokens, basically, that we can check on. Okay, we're going to get the provider's website URL. And if we have that, then we can move forward. All right, and then this code here is where we're going to get the email addresses for the provider, okay? So this is deep in the bowels of the HTML. We're going to find the form, and we're going to find the email script in that form, and we're going to find the start and end of all the email addresses within there, and then we're going to just basically split out all of the emails in this code here. Okay, this will give us a list of provider emails, and we're actually splitting it up here. And then we just want to write the provider URL to our CSV file. If we have any emails, we want to go ahead and for each of them, we're going to write them to the CSV file. Okay. Now, what I found is that this domain of Hologic and Sinosure.com, these domains basically indicate just sort of a generic email address that's more, I think, a tracking email for Sculpture and for the Sculpture parent company, so they can see that, oh, you know, if people are reaching out to these doctors via the Sculpture website, it just means that this is just a way to track that, okay? And then we just write that line, or excuse me, we write that to the CSV file. We write a return when we're done with that, so that we can go to the next line. And if nothing was found for the provider, we just basically write the provider name to the CSV file. So we have, within the list in our CSV file, we have a way to say, like, okay, well, this provider was found, but there was no info for the provider. So that just shows us that. And when we're done with the loop, we just print out to the console that the scraping is complete, close out the CSV file, and we're done. Now, let's look at what the output is here. So we can see the output shows, all right, so we're starting to process the zip code. And, okay, so we're going to say Revive Aesthetics has this, which we just actually looked at. So we can see that that actually worked. It retrieved that email address. Moving on, we have a doctor by the name of Nick Sarimanolis. Okay. And this looks like a personal email right here. Okay, so we can reach out to Dr. Nick. And this just shows us all of the doctors within that geographical area. And it doesn't look like there are too many in Alaska, so not too surprising given the population density there. And our scraping's complete. Let me just do this for each of the 50 states, and we'll have us a nice list of data from which we can actually do stuff with. So this is more from the perspective of a marketing standpoint. I don't know how much actual data science we would do off of this, statistical analysis and whatnot, machine learning, not necessarily applicable, but for just scraping, this is a great demo, I think. And yeah, I hope this was useful to you. And thanks for watching. And we will see you in the next video.